I mean, imagine you built Tom Platz-like legs from sets of 20 in the squat and hack squat. Okay, show me how much you can squat. I want to build my body with exercises that probably aren't the competition lifts themselves, because if you use the competition lifts year round, you just get stale as fuck. Also, you get injured beyond recognition. But derivative lifts, especially ones that focus on my areas of need. So if you're really struggling locking out the bench press, you're going to be doing a shitload of dips, a shitload of jam presses and sculls, and a shitload of close grip work so that your chest gets bigger, shoulders get bigger, triceps get bigger, but really emphasis on the triceps. And then locking out is much easier because you added the muscle where you're supposed to add it in the rep range of 5 to 10. So that muscle that you added is the kind that gets raw, like shows off its strength really fast. Now that kind of shit, like imagine again coming into a gym and seeing someone do a deficit deadlift, their 4th set of 6 repetitions, and being like, what athlete is that? Like, I don't know. It could be a really hardcore bodybuilder, but it could be a powerlifter. I don't know. The answer in that case, it's a powerlifter, but it doesn't look like you would think hypertrophy works look, and it almost looks like strength work. And in a sense it is, but sets of 6, sets of 7, sets of 8, that's a shitload of volume, especially for a powerlifter. I mean, how many sets of deficit deadlifts would it take for you to get sore if they were sets of 8?
Or just worn out. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Thinking about it, I'm getting sore.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's probably not the best idea for powerlifters to copy bodybuilders and be like, I've actually seen guys do this. Their hypertrophy phase, they'll just buddy up with bodybuilders in the gym and they'll just be training partners. Like, word up, get ready to have sweet side belts, I guess. You can do better, and you can take your powerlifting hypertrophy work and make it just a slightly higher repetition, slightly different lift version of your strength work. When you're done with that, after 3 to 5 months, you need to cool off, you go back into strength. The cool thing about that is it gives the athlete a huge change of pace. It also lets them realign back with what they love the most. I mean, like if you have powerlifters who are going to be the best or close, what they love most in this world is bone crushing weight in their fucking hands. Because if you don't like that, you're not going to be that good at powerlifting.
Yeah.
You can't take these motherfuckers away from that for too long because they'll fucking quit. Or they'll just be like, fuck this hypertrophy work, I'm done. Like enough sets of 8 for a real fast twitch athlete that's gifted, they're like, this is fucking stupid. Everything hurts, I'm out of here. But if you do that for 3 to 5 months and then they're like, bro, I'm about to quit. You're like, oh, don't worry. Here's a strength block. They do that strength block or strength mesocycle and they're like, oh my fucking God, PR. You're like, did you like that? They're like, yes. Like, do you want to put on more muscle so we can repeat that? They're like, fuck yeah. And then they're bought in. And then the last half of that year, another 3 to 5 months of hypertrophy work, another 2 months of strength work, they already bought into that because they're, they've already seen it be super effective. That's my take.
Yeah, a personal story to kind of play into support what you just said is there was a time period when I was in college where I transferred from Tiffin to Bowling Green, and so there's no powerlifting crew. But where at the gym I was training, I had bodybuilders. So they're like, do a show. It's going to take you a year to get ready to do a show. So all powerlifting.
That's fun advice.
Yeah, so I did 2.5 years of just pure bodybuilding, and there was 1, 2, 3. You good? You're going to croak.
I got that COVID, man. Okay, lungs are back. Let's do it.
All right. So there was like 3 or 4 shows throughout this period. So if there was any phasic structure, it was just the show.
Yeah.
And just pulling out the show, the dieting that goes along with that. And all training with bodybuilders. So my weight went way up, so I went from a 242 class to off-season 265.
You were trying to gain, or was it just eating and growing?
I'd never trained like a bodybuilder before.
So the volume.
Yeah, the volume. So it was just that. And my strength on a lot of the weird lifts, behind the neck presses, 405 for 5 and stupid shit, like benching 455 for 8, stuff that I wasn't doing before powerlifting, just crazy stuff. But it was all bodybuilding oriented. So then after the 2.5 years of realizing this isn't my gig, I don't want to do this, I'm going to go back to powerlifting. I went right into, the 8-week peaking powerlifting phase, went to a meet, totaled 200 pounds under my best total, weighing 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
And a whole weight class heavier. Now, had I, as what you're saying here, threw in a couple phases in those 3 years to take the muscle that I was developing and teach it to do, right? The easy way to explain it, teach it to do what I wanted it to do, which is the powerlifting. It wouldn't have taken, because that fucked my head. That was that was a big brain fuck. And, you know, Louis, of course, was there at the time. This was before I moved to Columbus. Like, that bodybuilding shit ain't gonna do nothing for you. It's all, you put all this muscle on, you can't fucking lift anything. I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on. I don't get it. You know, now looking back, you know, that if somebody is going to take that long time, like you're saying, I think what you just said is extremely vital.
Sure.
Because it's going to be a bigger battle. It was probably, first I had to learn how to do the lifts again, because 8 weeks wasn't enough. I mean, when you're used to doing a closed stance squat for bodybuilding, now you're going back out wide. It's like, what the fuck?
Especially the equipped sumo squat is a completely different animal.
Yeah. Well, this was single ply back then, but it's still a big difference, right? Yeah. And but all the lifts are different, you know, because I wasn't deadlifting a lot with the bodybuilding, because why? You know, there's other things you can do that I didn't like the deadlift anyhow. So there's that all aside, you know, if you don't like a movement, don't do it. Yeah. It's funny how people jump my shit about that. But and then the bench is even different, you know, with my structure, benching was terrible for trying to grow my pecs. It just, my arms just overpowered all the frickin' time. Sure. And I had to relearn all that. Yeah. And it's like, what the hell? And it took longer.
You basically switched sports.
Yeah, I did.
And it, you know, of course, hindsight is 2020. At least you learned a very valuable lesson.
Big one.
Powerlifting strength is specific strength. And being able to do powerlifting things definitely depends on how much muscle you have, but it depends on more than that.
Your ability to do the movement, you know, to focus during the movement was a big part that I learned. The other one was, you know, I became very strong on auxiliary exercises, you know, accessory exercises that really didn't mean shit in powerlifting. Sure. You know, like an 80-pound side raise. Well, first off, it doesn't mean shit anyhow, but back then I thought it did, you know, like whip up the 80 pounds and, you know, big delts.
Just move stuff.
Yeah, just throw the shit around and, you know, kind of go that route, which that's something fun to talk about. So we'll talk about that, right? Yeah. So, well, let's keep into the weeds with the hypertrophy stuff and talk about one of the things that when I'll have people out for training clinics that I try to, lifters, right, that I try to teach them and to show them is how to train movements kind of like a bodybuilder. Let's take the momentum out of the start of the movement. So let's, you know, get to an end range, you know, your full range of motion, right? So get to the end range. Don't use momentum to start it, you know, and then flex it as hard as you can and then control it on the way down. You know, what I want to show them to do is if they're going to do an exercise like a push down or a one arm tricep extension, you don't need to use 60, 70 pounds. I should be able to, like, if it's you, I should be able to say, here's a 30-pound dumbbell. I want you to go to failure between 12 and 15. Right. And you'll find a way to go to failure. Sure. If you got to, you know, flex it harder, slower the tempo, whatever it's going to be. Because a lot of lifters come through this mentality of that repetition is only one way you can do it. Just muscle fuck it up. Yeah. And then bring it back down. My theory, which you'll be able to tell me if this is true or not, is if that's all they do, the joint wear and tear is going to be way higher. Because if they can use a lower load, control the weight better, would that not result in less joint wear and tear?
Absolutely. I think it's important to ask the question of what are we doing with this specific exercise right now? Yeah. Because if it's like, look, zombies will be here soon, and if you don't get this one rep, we're all going to fucking die. Yeah. Use whatever. Use your glutes, use your hips. Who cares? If you are trying to strengthen the triceps, there's like a trillion better compound moves than a cable push down. Yeah. If you're trying to grow the triceps respond to tension generated by the triceps, and that's what grows them. And it doesn't matter how much rear delt tension or lat tension or ab tension you do in this first part to push the weight down. And nobody gives a flying fuck how many plates in the stack you put. So if you can use good technique that isolates mostly or only your triceps, you can produce lots of force on the way down, but also control the eccentric on the way up. Yeah. You get the most out of that exercise for growing the muscle, and you don't get any of that other stuff like joint wear and tear by using more weight than that muscle alone actually benefits from. And if it's more weight than the muscle alone benefits from, you have to have other muscles and movements come in and help out. Why? Because you arbitrarily said you wanted to lift more weight? there's always a thing where if powerlifters are working in with bodybuilders on assistance work, I mean, it's like that for all humans, mostly men, I guess. You just fucking want to be able to do a lot. You watch the bodybuilder do 100 pounds for 10 reps and then cable push down, and he's doing great technique, and you're like, fucking pussy, watch this. And you do 150 pounds for 10 reps. But everyone knows except for you that your 10 reps were the single ugliest thing ever recorded on camera, and his were flawless. So at the end of the day, what did you do? You hurt your joints more or put more stress in your joints. You probably got the same workout for your triceps, but at a multiple expense of your joints, of systemic fatigue, of other muscles you could be using. I mean, imagine if you did a curl with so much force that you needed your lower back and glutes to activate a ton. What's that going to do to the deadlifts you do tomorrow? You're not going to be as fresh. You might hit 5 pounds less than you could have 10 pounds less. That shit adds up over time. So when you're using an assistance exercise, it's super important to understand what muscle we're targeting, what the range of motion is we're going to be doing, making sure we understand the muscle moves through the range of motion, and ideally nothing else happens.
Yes.
That's how you fucking train the muscle.
Yes.
For that muscle size to increase. If you want that muscle strength to increase, then you put it into a movement that's more strength oriented, like a compound movement, a jam press, for example. You want strong triceps, jam press is great. Because it's not quite isolation, it's more compound, and you press as hard as you can with your triceps and then slowly lower. But that still means no heave hoeing. I mean, there's probably guys that would cheat on the power lifts if possible.
Yeah.
The thing is, power lifts are not amenable to cheating. And so all of your other work that you should do should also not be amenable to cheating. Like you see guys doing like face pulls and they're rocking forward and rocking back. Like, what are the face pulls for?
Yes.
They're like, well, it's so I can retract get into my bench shirt better. Like, are you allowed to rock back on a bench? Like, no, the bench prevents it. So what the fuck are you doing right now? You better use your actual delts, you stupid asshole, because that's what we're here to train. It's really easy to get away from that. And I think it's super important for a mature lifter to understand that every time I lift a weight, my technique has to reflect the demands of what's going on, and it has to be fucking good. And how much weight I use should be something that falls out of that equation and not plugged in up front. You don't come up to it's so tough. You don't come up and say, I'm going to use the fucking 80s for curls. You go, I need a bicep workout with dumbbells. I have no idea what the weight is going to be, but I need it to be in sets of 5 to 10. You warm up, and after a while, you're like, it's the 60s. And a training partner of yours is like, let's fucking hit these 80s, bro. And you're like, for sets of 2, like, whatever, just fucking get them up. Like, what? Why are we here to just throw 80s around? Because there a girl walking around who will like face at me if I successfully get 2 reps. It's nonsense.
Well, the other variable that is just as hard outside of the weight is the reps. So you can tell somebody, look, it's going to be, get 8 reps, and they're going to get to 6. And if they're controlling the tempo, it could fail if they just kept doing that. But they got this fucking 8 reps in their head. So it becomes this clusterfuck.
Whatever I have to do to get 8 reps, I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Live or die.
Exactly. And it's hard. Like when you're trying to teach that, to somebody that doesn't have that muscle control. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Ego control?
Well, not ego control so much. It's just they don't know how to flex. They don't know how a muscle feels to contract.
Yes. They can't tell where the tension is coming.
Yeah. So then we're trying to teach them to let that tension stay on the tricep.
Sure.
And it's a tough one, right? Because you can time it, tempo it, but that's where, RPE, reps and reserve, that's where all those things kind of get a little confusing because they'll see, hey, I want you to be, 4 reps shy of failure or 2 reps shy of failure. But they end up doing 3 good reps and they do some fast reps and they could end up doing 15 total reps instead of the 8. Instead of that whole, how do you teach people and help them to mentally wrap their head around that?
I'm glad you asked. I have a very distinct answer.
Yes.
I think there's a hierarchy to this, and I think it's a 3-step hierarchy. At the bottom of the hierarchy is for beginners or people new to any movement, but especially beginners to training. And the number one thing we want out of those people is to be able to demonstrate good external technique. Like if you are doing a squat, I expect you to hit depth, and I expect you to stand up. I expect your force to be spread evenly between your heels and your toes. And I expect for the bar to stay rigid on your back, and I expect your back to stay like this instead of be like all around. And if you can do that, I don't give a fuck if you feel it in your glutes or your quads or where. I don't care how you feel about shit. I need good reps. Like, you know, like videos of weightlifting hauls, like the World Weightlifting Championships. You look at it and you're like, how the fuck is everybody in there has got perfect technique? I want that.
Yeah, yeah.
So for probably 2 years, all I care about is good technique. And the way I decide with athletes, should you put more weight on the bar, is show me a set of whatever reps you were going to do. And if every rep is very good technique, then you can go up and weight.
Okay.
And if you fuddle, next week we do the same weight because you're not ready for the shit. So technique first. After they demonstrate that they understand what good technique is, and I'm going to say something else here that's important. In their fucking soul, they are dedicated to every set being good technique. I'm trying to come from a place with athletes where you should be more ashamed about doing bad technique than you should be ashamed about not being strong enough, whatever the fuck that means at the time. And this is probably true for folks like, I'm not going to speak about to you, but you can tell me if this is true for you. I've been around the block. I've been around lifting a while. I think of myself as someone who knows things. When I come into a gym and I see someone doing a perfect technique, anything, I'm 10 times more likely to come up and talk to them and be like, dude, you're the fucking shit. That was awesome. Than some fucking strong fucking retard who's like 8 vials of tren in his eyes and he's benching 4 or 5 for reps. Oh, slow clap. I got 8 guys from New Jersey that did that too, and 4 of them are already dead. You can be number 5.
Yeah.
So it's first technique. Once you have a base of technique, the second thing is you teach them how to go hard. And by hard, I mean something very specific. How to grind reps while always maintaining good technique. Anybody can grind reps. If you're like, just do whatever, they're like, it's everywhere. But if you can first get good technique, that first year or 2 of learning good technique, it is almost that the lifting seems so unanimated. It's like the difference between going to the WPO championships back in the day and going to a weightlifting meet back in the day. Weightlifting, you got your butler there, it's a golf clap, everything quiet, everyone's got perfect technique, and this is boring as fuck. But after that boredom, then you grind these motherfuckers and you say, okay, now that you know what good technique is, and now that in your fucking soul, it's your pride to get every rep with good technique, no matter what, I'm going to offer you another challenge. Now we're going to take you closer and closer to failure, to muscular failure, to where you can't do it often. And what I want you to do is we're Icarusing your dumbass into the sun. And I want you, as Icarus, the dragon or whatever the fuck, as you get close to the sun, even though your feathers are burning off, I want you to fucking fly into the sun with the same fucking cadence as always, if there is no fucking sun. You give me that person, after a couple of years, they know what 2 things. Really good technique and how to fucking push hard without it failing. As far as powerlifting, I'm already done with that motherfucker. They're in, you're ready for whatever kind of powerlifting training they're going to do.
Yeah.
There's a third level that helps with some powerlifting assistance work like you were getting at, and it helps with bodybuilding, and that's the mind-muscle connection. Now that you know good technique, now that you know how to push hard, I want you to start connecting with your muscles and asking yourself the question of, what am I pushing hard with? Is it my chest? Is it my triceps? If instead of doing my skull crushers like this, if I go like this, does that make the tension higher in my triceps versus my pecs? Then as officially an advanced lifter, you can start feeling that out. But to your question of like, if you have a person who doesn't really know much, how do you get them to feel that their biceps are working? Dave, I don't have an answer for that shit. Yeah. I think that's 3 questions away from where we should be.
Good. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like trying to make someone, you know, like, hey, how do I pick up? This is the pickup girls thing is getting crazy. Fuck, I'll use it. How do I pick up girls in Spain? How much Spanish do you know? I don't know any Spanish. Well, guess what, motherfucker? You got to learn Spanish words first.